Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aruṇācala Ramanaaya. Namaskaram. Last Friday was Deepam Day, and still the Deepam will be burning on top of Aruṇācala. It usually burns for about 10 days. So I thought this would be a fitting occasion to talk about Bhagavan's verse, Dīpa Darśaṇa Tattuvam. That is on Kartika Deepam Day, on the 24th of November 1931, when answering some questions about Aruṇācala, Bhagavan explained its tattva, that's its reality, truth, import or signification. And his explanation was immediately recorded by Murugana in a Tamil verse, Sri Aruṇācala Tattuvam. When Murugana showed this verse to Bhagavan, he asked him to compose a similar verse explaining the tattva of Dīpa Darśaṇa. That is, Murugana asked Bhagavan to compose a similar verse explaining the tattva of Dīpa Darśaṇa, because it was Dīpa Darśaṇa Day. So Bhagavan immediately composed a verse in the same meter entitled Dīpa Darśaṇa Tattuvam. So that's the context in which Bhagavan composed this verse. Since these two verses are a pair, I will briefly talk about the verse composed by Murugana. Though it was composed by Murugana, it's Bhagavan's explanation. What is said in this first verse is buddhi ahaṅkāram pulambeyda vōṅgum maddhi idayam maṛaiyavaṉu malum nattavaṛi yādu nalaṅgulaiya vaṉṇār maddhiyoḻi mallayiṇadu meyyē. What that means is oneself, the heart, the center, which surges when intellect and ego suffer anguish, is the actual reality of Aruṇācala, which shone between them, Brahma and Vishnu, when pride was deflated, not knowing as desired. That's put very crisply. What that implies is the actual reality or tattva of Aruṇācala, that's a Tamil name of Aruṇācala, which shone forth as a column of light between Brahma and Vishnu when their pride was deflated, or for their pride to be deflated because of their not knowing or perceiving the top or bottom of that column of fire as they desired. The actual truth of that is oneself, the heart, the center, which surges or is exalted when intellect and ego suffer anguish. That implies when ego and when intellect and ego despairing because of their not being able to know their real nature, thereby becoming humble and willing to subside and surrender. So this refers to the story of the origin of Aruṇācala, which is also the origin of the linga, because Aruṇācala is Adi Linga Swarupa, the original linga form of Lord Shiva. So I think you'll all be familiar with this story, how Brahma and Vishnu were quarreling about who is the greatest, and Lord Shiva appeared between them in the form of a column of fire. And they wondered at this because Brahma hadn't created this column and Vishnu wasn't sustaining it, how this had appeared there. So they decided that this was had appeared in order to test who is the greatest. So whoever could see the top or bottom of this would be the greatest, they decided. So Brahma took the form of a swan and started flying upwards, and Vishnu took the form of a boar and started burrowing downwards. As Brahma was flying upwards, after thousands of years, he still hadn't reached the top. So he began to despair of ever being able to reach the top, but he decided is not one's pride one's most precious possession. So it's better to tell a lie than to be put to shame. So he decided to lie, saying he had reached the top. And just as he And just as he thought that, he saw a flower falling. That flower was a Ketuki flower. And so he asked that flower where it was coming from. The flower said, "I've been falling for thousands of years from the top of a column." Brahma asked, "Can I reach the top?" And the flower said, "No, it's far. You would have to fly for thousands of years before you could reach the top. You'll never be able to reach the top." Then Brahma said, "Well, will you bear false witness on my behalf that I've seen the top?" And the flower agreed. So they returned. In the meanwhile, Vishnu, who was burrowing down, he also understood that he's never going to be able to reach the foot of this column. But unlike Brahma, whose pride increased, his pride decreased. He subsided, and he humbly understood that that it was foolish to claim that I am the greatest. And therefore, he also decided to return. And when he returned, he met Brahma. He started to praise the column of fire, saying this column of fire is the Supreme Lord. And Brahma ridiculed him, saying, "Because I've seen the top, but because you couldn't reach the bottom, you're praising this column of fire. You should praise me, because I'm supreme. I'm the one who reached the top, and this flower bears witness on my behalf." Vishnu knew that he was lying, but what could he do? He just continued praising the column of fire. And immediately Lord Shiva appeared out of the column of fire and cursed Brahma. "Because you lied, you will not be worshipped in any temples." And he also cursed the flower for bearing false witness. "You will never be used in my puja." And he blessed Vishnu because of your humility, because you have subsided. You are one with me, and you will always be worshipped in this world as my equal. So that's the story. What Bhagavan points out in this verse is that Lord Shiva, in the form of Aruṇācala, the mountain of light, signifies maddhi, idayam, tan. That means oneself, the heart, the center, namely Atmaswarupa, which is the heart or center of all. Being Satchit, the original light of pure awareness, I am. Vishnu signifies ahaṅkāram, ego, the distorted and deluded form of awareness that experiences itself as I, not just as I am, but as I am this body. And Brahma signifies buddhi, the intellect, the instrument by which we as ego try to understand and gain mastery over the external world, which appears as soon as we rise as ego, thereby mistaking ourselves to be a body. So Brahma flying upwards to find the summit of a column represents the effort that we make to understand the truth of the world, God, and ourself through our outward-going intellect, which seeks to know the reality by extroverted means such as science, religion, and philosophy. So long as we direct our attention and efforts outwards, away from our own being, I am, we can never know the reality as it is. So whatever knowledge we gain thereby is only a lie, meaning that it is not real knowledge, but just an illusory pretense masquerading as such. Vishnu burrowing down into the ground to find the foot of a column represents the effort we as ego make to be aware of ourselves as we actually are by penetrating deep into our own heart, the innermost core or center of ourself. Only when we thus direct all our interest, attention and effort inwards towards our own being, I am, can we be aware of ourselves as we actually are, thereby eradicating ego, the false awareness of ourselves as a person, a body consisting of 5 sheaths. When ego is destroyed, when Aruṇācala, the heart, shines forth as it actually is, when we experience ourselves as we actually are. So that's what Bhagavan implies by the word ōṅgum, which means surging, rising high or ascending. That is the shining forth of Aruṇācala as our own reality. And that happens only when we humbly subside. So that's the first verse. Then to come to the main verse, the verse that was composed by Bhagavan, what he says in this verse is, Ittanuve nanam enumatiye nitap buddhi idayate porundiyaha nokal aduvida māme ahachurakange bu maddiyanam anamalai chudahan meyyē. What this means is giving up the mind called this body alone is I. That is the mind which is aware of itself as this body alone is I. That mind subsiding in the heart by self-attentiveness. Ahaṅkāram means looking within or looking at I. So it implies self-attentiveness. Seeing the light of I, that is the light of awareness, the self-awareness I am, that implies. The non-dual reality is the actual reality of seeing the light of anamalai, which is called the center of the world. That is just like the heart is the center of all things. Anamalai, which is the outward representation of the heart, is the center of the world. So this verse is a very beautiful verse because while explaining the tattva of seeing Dīpam, Bhagavan actually gives a very neat summary of his own of his teachings. That is the signification of seeing what the tattva of seeing Dīpam is seeing the light of I, which is the non-dual reality. And in order to see that light, we need to give up, we need to surrender the mind, whose form is this body alone is I. The mind here refers to ego. The word he actually uses is maddhi. Maddhi often means intellect, but in this case it means mind, and specifically ego, that which is aware of itself as ittanuve nanam, this body alone is I. How do we give up that conviction? That is explained in the next clause, where Bhagavan says, the mind subsiding or merging in the heart by self-attentiveness. That is, to the extent to which we turn our attention within and focus our attention on our own being, we as mind thereby subside back into the heart, which is our own being, our own reality, and thereby this false awareness, I am this body, drops off, and the pure awareness, I am alone, remains. That is, the adjuncts drop off, and the pure awareness, I am alone, remains. That is, ego, the false awareness, I am this body, is not anything other than the pure awareness, I am, but it's just like the snake is not anything other than a rope, but it seems to be something different because of the adjuncts, because we identify ourselves as a set of adjuncts, namely a body consisting of 5 sheaths. We mistake ourselves, we are aware of ourselves as something other than what we actually are. So that when that false awareness is given up by subsiding in the heart by means of self-attentiveness, we then see the light of I, which Bhagavan describes as advita meyyē, the non-dual reality. One important thing to remember, to note here, that is this, Bhagavan gives us a very important clue when he describes the light of I. The light of I means the light of pure awareness. When he describes it as the non-dual reality, it implies that we can't see the non-dual reality as something other than ourselves. So long as we see it as something other than ourselves, we are not seeing it as a non-dual reality, because the Advaita means one without a second. So long as there's a subject-object relationship, so long as we're seeing that Aruṇācala, the light of pure awareness, is something other than ourself, that is duality. So in order to see the non-dual reality, we need to be the non-dual reality. We cannot see it as something other than ourselves. This is what Bhagavan points out in verse 26 of Upadesha Undiya. Tānai iritale, tanne aridalam. That means being oneself alone is knowing oneself. That is, there are not two selves, one self to know another self. It's a state we can know ourselves only by being ourselves. Because what we actually are is pure awareness. And pure awareness can never be an object known by anything else. Pure awareness, what knows pure awareness is only pure awareness. So that is what is to be seen is the non-dual reality. So in order to see the non-dual reality, it must be a non-dual seeing. In other words, we can see the light of I only by being the light of I. And here the light of I, which Bhagavan refers to as the non-dual reality, means what we actually are, the pure satchit, the pure being awareness that we actually are. And that is the signification or tattva of seeing the Aruṇācala Tattuvam. So, as I say, in this verse, Bhagavan has given us a beautiful summary of his teachings. He points out what is the goal. The goal is to see the non-dual reality, which is the light of I, the light of pure awareness, and we can see it only by being it. And in order to be, we are always that. We are never anything other than that. But so long as we rise as ego, we limit ourselves as I am this body, and therefore we seem to be something other than that. So in order to see and to be that, we need to we need to give up this false awareness, I am this body. And in order to give up this false awareness, I am this body, we need to subside and merge back in the heart. And in order to subside and merge back in the heart, we need to look deep within ourselves. We need to, the Tamil word ahaṅkāram, it has a beautiful meaning. Noku means to look. It's a noun meaning to look, but it's derived from a verb that means to look or see. So ahaṅkāram means by nokal implies by looking, and that is ahaṅkāram is a compound. It's a compound of aham and nokal. Aham has a double meaning in Tamil. That is, there's a pure Tamil word aham, which means inside, mind, heart, or home. It's also the Sanskrit first-person pronoun I. So Bhagavan often uses this word aham in Tamil with a double meaning, because what is inside, namely the heart, is itself I. So the Tamil meaning, though the Tamil meaning and the Sanskrit meaning are distinct meanings, they're actually pointing at the same reality in the deepest sense of the word. So ahaṅkāram we can take as looking inside, looking within, or we can also take it as looking at I. In other words, being self-attentive, attending to ourselves. That is the means by which we subside into the heart. By subsiding into the heart, we thereby give up the false awareness, I am this body, and thus we remain as that pure awareness, I am, which Bhagavan describes as the light of awareness, the non-dual reality. I've got a few more minutes, so I'll just explain this a bit more. In verse 27 of Uludu Napadu, Bhagavan says very beautifully, nānudiyada ullanilai, nāmaduvai ullanilai. The state in which I is without rising is the state in which we are that. That is, we are always that. That here means Brahman, which is what Bhagavan refers to here as Aruṇācala, the light of pure awareness, the non-dual reality. We are always that, but we seem to be something other than that because we've risen as ego. So in order to experience ourselves as I am that, we need to be without rising. That is, I need to be without rising. The rising I is ego. The being I is Brahman. So the state in which I is without rising is the state in which we are that. And then Bhagavan goes on to say how to attain the annihilation of oneself, the state in which I does not rise, except by investigating the source, the place from which I rises. Place there he uses metaphorically to mean the source. So the source from which we rise as ego is our own being. So attending to our own being, investigating our own being, is the means by which we can be without rising as I and thereby annihilate ourselves. So when Bhagavan mentions Tanirapay, the annihilation of oneself, he's indicating that what he means by the state in which I is without rising is not just a temporary state like sleep, but the permanent state, the state of the eternal state of just being as we actually are. And then he goes on to say, without attaining that annihilation of ourself, how to be in our real state in which we are that. So there Bhagavan is clearly indicating that in order to know to know the non-dual reality, we need to be the non-dual reality. And in order to be the non-dual reality, we need to cease rising as I. That is the same truth that he's teaching, in other words, in this verse. So this verse is, while explaining the tattva of Dīpam, Bhagavan also is giving us a very neat summary of his teachings. And he also is clarifying the explanation that he gave that was recorded by Murugan in the previous verse, because in order for that is, when will Aruṇācala shine forth? Only when, as it actually is, as our own being, only when the buddhi and ahaṅkāra subside. And how they subside is explained by Bhagavan in this verse. So these two verses are beautifully linked together. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Aruṇācala Ramanaaya.
What does Bhagavan mean by I not rising?
I not rising means not, that is, the rising of I, the rising of ego, is when we limit ourselves as I am this body, when we are aware of ourselves as something separate and finite. What we actually are is the infinite, as Bhagavan describes in verse 28 of Upadesha Undiyya, what we actually are is Anadi, Ananta, Akhanda, Satchidananda. That is, Anadi means it's beginningless because it's beyond time. Ananta means it's endless, limitless, infinite. And Akhanda means it's unbroken. Unbroken means it's not divided. There are no parts of Satchidananda. We are not just a part of Satchidananda, we are Satchidananda itself. But when we rise as ego, we limit ourselves, and thereby we seem to be something separate. That is what Bhagavan means by the rising of I. When we take on this seeming limitation, and that is the obstacle. Bhagavan often used to say, jnana is not a new knowledge to be attained. We always know ourselves, but we don't know ourselves as we actually are because we mistake ourselves to be something other than what we actually are. So if the false awareness, I am this body, is removed, the pure awareness, the real awareness, I am, alone remains. And that real awareness, I am, that is Aruṇācala.
How can we investigate what we actually are when we do not know the I we have to investigate?
That is, we always know I. We always know I am. But that is the whole truth. I am is the whole truth. The problem is, instead of knowing just I am, we know I am this body, I am this person, I am such and such a person. So that false awareness covers up or it obscures the real awareness, but it never completely hides it. So we are always clearly aware of ourselves. But we are just, though we are clearly aware that we are not clearly aware what we are. So in order to put an end to the rising of I, we need to be aware of ourselves as we actually are. And for this, we need to investigate ourselves. So we already know what it is we are to investigate. That is, we are always clearly aware I am. As Muruganar says in the Anupalavi, the post-refrain of Anmavidde, which is a song, Muruganar composed the Palavi and Anupalavi, the refrain and sub-refrain, and then Bhagavan composed the verses. So in the sub-refrain, the post-refrain, the Anupalavi, Muruganar sings, this Atman is so clear, even to a dullest of people, that in comparison, an amalaka fruit on the palm, hastamalaka, even that becomes, even that fades. That is, often we use the example of an amla on the palm as an example of something that is very, very clear. But Muruganar says there that in comparison, this Atman is so much clearer, because the one thing we all know, every sentient being is aware I am. They may not be aware of the words I am, it's not the words, but what the words I am denote, we are all aware of that. That is, we are aware of our own being. We couldn't be aware of anything other than ourselves without first being aware of ourselves, because being aware means being aware that we're aware, and being aware that we're aware means being aware that we are. So the very nature of awareness is swayam prakasa, it's self-shining. So we are always aware of ourselves. The problem is we're aware of ourselves as something other than what we actually are. So in order to remove this false awareness and to reveal awareness as it actually is, we need to turn our attention within and investigate ourselves. That is, as Bhagavan explained, the nature of ego is always to be aware of things other than itself. But the pure awareness I am is never aware of anything other than itself. So long as we're aware of other things, we are not aware of ourselves as we actually are. So we need to turn our entire attention back to ourselves, so that we cease to be aware of other things. Then only will we be clearly aware of ourselves as we actually are. So this investigation is necessary, but we are not investigating something unknown. We always know I, but we don't know I as it actually is. So we need to investigate it. That is why what Bhagavan means in this verse by the word ahaṅkāram. Ahaṅkāram means by looking within, by looking at I. by turning our attention back to ourselves, in other words. So Bhagavan has clearly shown us the way.